Chapter 1339, Tianyuan Mystery Land. Chapter 1339, Tianyuan Mystery Land. Jian Wushuang, Master of Silence Gloriette said, I have heard from Lord Wu Tsang about your plan to go to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. I have the map, but you had better not to go there. Why? Jian Wushuang raised his head to look at Master of Silence Gloriette. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries are extremely far from the Snow Kingdom, through a route of which is full of obstacles and danger. It is difficult to handle even for a universe god in the third heaven. I nearly died on the way to one of the sanctuaries. Master of Silence Gloriette added. Jian Wushuang frowned. Even Master of Silence Gloriette, who was much more powerful than him, had almost died on the way to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Jian Wushuang, the eternal chaotic world is full of danger. Even King Luozhen and the creators of the lineage of Star could meet a deadly situation. But it doesn't mean that you should step back. King of Venomous Worms said. You are right. Jian Wushuang smiled. I recommend that you delay your plan and cultivate in my snow dojo for tens of thousands of years. It won't be too late for you to go there, when you become a universe god of the third heaven. Master of Silence Gloriette smiled. Jian Wushuang said, Thank you for your kindness. I know how dangerous the journey will be, but I am quite determined to go there. Master of Silence Gloriette thought for a while and said, If you stay here, I could ask Master Luo, who is very good at swordsmanship, to teach you how to improve your swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang paused for a while. He was surprised that Master of Silence Gloriette was trying whatever he could to convince Jian Wushuang to stay in the Snow Dojo. But in fact, the reason why I want to go to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries is that I am going to meet my master there and learn from him. Jian Wushuang said. Master of Silence Gloriette finally gave up his efforts to persuade Jian Wushuang. Okay, since you already have a master, it is better for you to leave here and go there. He took out a token saying, Here is the map to one of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. I only have one. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang, The 10 cultivation sanctuaries are close to each other. If you can find one, it is easy to find the rest of them. Thank you. Jian Wushuang was very happy. After Jian Wushuang left the palace, he took out the token immediately and started to read. My guess is confirmed. The Snow Kingdom was just a tiny place located at the margin of the eternal chaotic world. So many gods, including me, didn't know of the Snow Kingdom. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang, Master of Silence Gloriette is right. Going to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries is really a daunting task. King of Venomous Worms added. Why do you say so? Jian Wushuang asked. As we have already known the location of the Snow Kingdom, we now don't have to follow Master of Silence Gloriette's advice about the route. I will spend some time figuring out a solution and tell you after you come back from the Tianyuan Mystery Land. Jian Wushuang nodded. He came back to his room and started to cultivate as usual. 10 days passed. 30 talents, including Tianyuan Mystery Land, had gathered to go to the Tianyuan Mystery Land. They followed Deacon Green, the chief deacon, to the entrance of the Tianyuan Mystery Land. After a moment, the gate of the Tianyuan Mystery Land opened. Jian Wushuang entered into the land and saw a vast white space. All the corners of the space were full of white smog, and he felt an invisible power coming to him. The power is, Jian Wushuang tried to figure out what it was. Do you also feel the power? Long Hao asked Jian Wushuang. 10 days ago, Jian Wushuang reversed the situation of the game and helped the Snow Dojo win the ranked battle. The rest of the 29 members all showed their respect to Jian Wushuang. They were very grateful to him. Without Jian Wushuang, they would have had no chance at all to come to the Tianyuan Mystery Land. Long Hao also respected him a lot. Yes, it is a consciousness attack. Jian Wushuang answered Long Hao. Yes. You are the best at consciousness attacks amongst us, so you must know more about the power. Long Hao said, Consciousness is fundamental to us, no less important than our lives. If our rivals from the Universe God Palace had a stronger consciousness, they wouldn't be defeated in a short time. He added, And Tian Yuan Mystery Land is a good place for us to cultivate consciousness. Cultivate consciousness? Jian Wushuang was interested. Long Hao continued. There has always been a powerful natural force in consciousness attacks. The deeper one is in the land, the stronger the attack is. We are now just at the margin of the Tian Yuan Mystery Land, and the power is relatively weak. But if we go deeper or go to the second level, the consciousness attack's power will soar. Chapter 1340 Cultivation under Assault of Consciousness. Chapter 1340 Cultivation under Assault of Consciousness. The assault of consciousness in Tian Yuan Mystery Land is divided into 4 levels according to their intensity. Any ordinary universe god in the first heaven could easily block the first level of assault of consciousness. As for the second level of the assault of consciousness, it would require the consciousness strength of a universe god in the second heaven to be able to resist. The one corresponding to the third level would be the universe god in the third heaven. As for the fourth level is rather obtuse. Snow Dojo has many geniuses that visit Tian Yuan Mystery Land. Many of them are impressive universe gods in the third heaven. However, those who pass through the fourth level under the assault of consciousness are extremely rare. Besides the intensity of the assault of consciousness on the fourth level, there are other opportunities. For instance, 10,000 years ago, there was a universe god in the third heaven from Snow Dojo who obtained an impressive secret skill from the fourth level. Of course, the fourth level is too far for us, universe gods in the first heaven. All we can do now is train our consciousness to the first level, or the second level at the most. Jian Wushuang, your assault of consciousness is so fierce. Maybe you could try to reach the very end of the second level, Long Hao said. Jian Wushuang understood the Tian Yuan Mystery Land to a certain extent after hearing what Long Hao said. It turned out that it was a mystery land to train and improve one's strength of consciousness. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. Jian Wushuang, it isn't easy to enhance your strength of consciousness, and places to enhance your strength of consciousness is hard to come by too. Although your consciousness has already transformed into soul power, you could also improve it with the assault of consciousness in Tian Yuan Mystery Land. It is a rare opportunity that you shouldn't miss. King of Venomous Worm's voice sounded in his head. I of course won't miss out on such an opportunity, Jian Wushuang replied. Jian Wushuang, we can only stay in Tian Yuan Mystery Land for 10 years. Tian Yuan Mystery Land will close 10 years later, and we will have to leave too. So, make the best use of the time and hurry up, Long Hao reminded. Jian Wushuang nodded. He didn't hesitate, and immediately moved forward. The other experts who entered Tian Yuan Mystery Land moved forward too. Whoever wanted to train one's consciousness via assault of consciousness must allow the assault of consciousness to push his endurance limit. Then, they were only at the border of the first level, and the assault of consciousness was fairly weak. Hence, there was naturally no one who wanted to cultivate there. Jian Wushuang continued to move forward. He could feel that the assault of consciousness was growing stronger throughout the journey, but he wasn't bothered. Soon he reached the end of the first level. Until then, he hadn't felt restricted at all. However, the few universe gods in the first heaven obviously felt the strain, although they persisted. The geniuses from Snow Dojo's consciousness were naturally stronger than the others of the same level. Almost everyone passed through the first level. But when they reached the second level, the assault of consciousness went up to the level of a universe god in the second heaven. Among the 10 universe gods in the first heaven, only Jian Wushuang, Long Hao and one other person managed to pull through. The remaining 7 of them stopped one after another. The assault of consciousness had obviously reached the limit of what they could endure. After a while, Long Hao and the other universe gods stopped in the middle region of the second level, while Jian Wushuang continued to move forward without hesitation. He walked directly to the end of the second level. Then he still didn't look like he was going to stop, but entered the third level directly. When he arrived the third level, the assault of consciousness had arrived at the level of universe god in the third heaven. However, Jian Wushuang looked normal, and he didn't seem to be straining at all. Although the assault of consciousness on the third level was fierce, it still couldn't affect me. Jian Wushuang found it strange and he asked in silence, King of Venomous Worms, do you know my strength of consciousness is currently at which level? Strength of consciousness. King of Venomous Worms smiled faintly and replied, you have always been training your consciousness and soul power with the method your master has taught you. Plus, you've been through so much, and also when you underwent the inverse cultivation test, the training of your mind test pushed your consciousness much higher compared to the others who shared the same rank. If you are talking about the strength of consciousness alone, you should currently be at the peak of Universe God in the second heaven, or even Universe God in the third heaven. However, because your consciousness transformed into soul power long ago, soul power is an extremely high-end power. Hence, even though you are slightly weaker in strength, an ordinary assault of consciousness wouldn't be able to do anything to you. Now, you are already entering the third level in Tian Yuan Mystery Land, but you still aren't affected much. I reckon you'd only feel strained when you reach the middle of third level. As for your limit, it should be at the end of the third level. Jian Wushuang heard that and nodded. Sure enough, when he reached the mid-region of the third level, the assault of consciousness caused a faint tingle in his head, and he felt a little strained. Then, Jian Wushuang didn't opt to stop, but continued to move forward. Soon, he arrived at the end of the third level and finally stopped. The others who had also walked till the end of the third level were the 9 universe gods, in the third heaven from Snow Dojo. There was a total of 10 universe gods in the third heaven from Snow Dojo that had entered Tian Yuan Mystery Land. However, among the 10 of them, the eye-catching Chen Feng had already leaped into the fourth level. That very moment, the 9 universe gods in the third heaven noticed Jian Wushuang's arrival, and they found it unbelievable. Are you kidding me? A universe god in the first heaven walked all the way to the end of the third level? Drawing with us? During the ranking battle earlier, I could tell that Jian Wushuang's consciousness attack was extremely strong. Hence, his strength of consciousness shouldn't be much weaker. However, I never expected his strength of consciousness to be compared favorably with us. Peak universe gods in the third heaven. Universe gods in the first heaven, who possesses such strength of consciousness. How is that possible? The 9 universe gods in the third heaven exchanged glances in surprise, and they were left speechless. However, Jian Wushuang was unconcerned. When he reached the end of the third level, he sat down. Then, he started cultivating Universal Tao Scripture, under the pressure of the consciousness attack. Universal Tao Scripture was a method to improve soul power. When one's soul power was at its limit, cultivating Scripture was definitely the best shortcut to improving soul power. It's a rare opportunity. I only have 10 years' time, and I can't miss a single second. Jian Wushuang held his fists tight, but he was calm. He was fully immersed into the cultivation of Universal Tao Scripture. As for those universe gods in the third heaven who were next to him, they already recovered from the surprise, and had concentrated on their own training too. Chapter 1341, A Woman in a Robe. Chapter 1341, A Woman in a Robe. The time just flew by. 9 years passed. And there was just 1 year left. Jian Wushuang finally opened his eyes after cultivating in the third layer for 9 years. After cultivating the Universal Tao Scripture for 9 years, under the pressure of the consciousness attack, I have doubled my soul power. Jian Wushuang was excited. Now your soul power and also your consciousness strength has reached the level of a universe god in the third heaven. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang, Tian Yuan Mystery Land is indeed a good place to cultivate. No wonder everyone from the Snow Dojo was eager to come here. Jian Wushuang thought, there is 1 year left. Maybe I can go to the fourth layer. The fourth layer. The most powerful and wonderful layer, in the Tian Yuan Mystery Land. Jian Wushuang was interested in what the fourth layer was about. He stood up and moved slowly to the fourth layer. As he stood up, the other 9 universe gods in the third heaven were surprised by him. What does he want to do? They soon figured out the intention of Jian Wushuang. This guy wants to go the fourth layer. Few universe gods in the third heaven could go there except Chen Feng. Jian Wushuang, only a universe god in the first heaven, dared to go there? They couldn't believe that. But they saw Jian Wushuang walk determinedly to the juncture between the third layer and the fourth layer, which was only a thin barrier. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and entered into the fourth layer. At that moment, Jian Wushuang felt a much stronger consciousness attack soar. Boom! Jian Wushuang felt a roar inside his head, which nearly drove him crazy, and his eyes turned blood red. He bit his lips and resisted the astonishing consciousness attack. Finally, he crossed through the barrier. He crossed through the barrier. He managed to do so. Unbelievable. The other 9 universe gods in the third heaven were astonished. Though they were universe gods in the third heaven and elites in the snow dojo, they could only stay in the third layer. But Jian Wushuang, a universe god in the first heaven, got to the fourth one. They felt ashamed. The fourth layer of the Tianyuan Mystery Land. Though Jian Wushuang successfully crossed the barrier, he couldn't move on anymore. His face turned red. Under the effect of the consciousness attack, he felt the soul fire in his body was all burning, nearly exploding. Just hold on, Jian Wushuang. You are almost there. King of Venomous Worms told Jian Wushuang at this crucial moment. Jian Wushuang also encouraged himself. I have resist the mind test. Only a consciousness attack is nothing to me. Under the unimaginable consciousness attack, Jian Wushuang improved his soul power slowly. As he gradually improved, he felt the stress was released a little bit, and he was now kept stable. Finally, I resisted the most difficult part. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. Keep cultivating here, Jian Wushuang, and you could gain more benefits, King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded. Though he felt tired, he struggled to sit down and cultivate universal Tao scripture. At the center of the Tianyuan Mystery Land, there was a mountain made of white crystals, which looked mysterious and valuable. Inside the mountain, a huge palace was located. There was a lady in a robe inside the palace, keeping still for millions of years. But at this moment, she opened her eyes and sent out a flash of purple light. The light crossed through the mountain and the boundless heaven, helping the lady to see Jian Wushuang trillion miles away. And the lady felt alarmed when she saw Jian Wushuang. Amongst the 30 talents entering into the Tianyuan Mystery Land, only Chen Feng entered into the fourth layer and walked for a long distance. His consciousness was much stronger than Jian Wushuang, who had just reached the margin of the fourth layer. But Chen Feng didn't draw the attention of the lady in a robe. Only Jian Wushuang woke the lady and made her alarmed. The soul power? The lady in a robe said. The lady's words would have surprised Jian Wushuang and King of Venomous Worms if they had heard them. After all, soul power was the supreme power of Jian Wushuang in the inverse cultivation. For many years, others often mistook the soul attack for the consciousness attack. Even Master of Silence Gloriette didn't know the truth. But now, the lady with a robe felt Jian Wushuang's soul power, without even seeing him exercising the soul attack. Only a universe god of the first heaven can ignite the soul fire. It is inverse cultivation. I could feel from his breath that he belongs to the lineage of ancient gods, and is very prestigious. A descendant of the lineage of ancient gods, who has passed through the first inverse cultivation, is now in my land. Interesting. The lady knew immediately who Jian Wushuang was and started to ponder. Chapter 1342, Secret Skill of Tianyuan. Chapter 1342, Secret Skill of Tianyuan. The Ancient God Clan. I bear the Ancient God Clan's fellowship. Now that that young man has come to my mystery land, let me make good affinity with him. Achi! Swoosh! A purple-haired lady appeared next to her. In the mystery land right now, there's a universe god in the first heaven, who is at the fourth level. When he's preparing to leave, pass this to him. The woman in the Taoist robe took an item out. Yes. The purple-haired lady took over and vanished into thin air. The woman in the Taoist robe closed her eyes, and the cave became quiet again. On the fourth level of Tianyuan Mystery Land, Jian Wushuang had been cultivating. With the aid of the assault of consciousness, his soul power had improved tremendously. The 10-year time limit was ending soon. Jian Wushuang could feel the surrounding sky and land rejecting him faintly. Have to leave soon, Jian Wushuang said regrettably, feeling a little disappointed. The assault of consciousness in Tianyuan Mystery Land was extremely useful for his training. In 10 years his soul power improved tremendously. If he were to continue to stay, he would definitely improve even more greatly. It's a pity that he could only stay in Tianyuan Mystery Land for 10 years. The moment time was up, he had to leave. Just when Jian Wushuang had stood up and was preparing to leave, swoosh, a green flowing light suddenly spurted before him. Jian Wushuang was stunned and extended his hand instinctually. He grabbed the green, flowing light straight away. This is? Jian Wushuang spread his hand and looked at the green crystal in his hand. A green crystal with a green tinge. It looked rather unusual. This is the Paradise Stone that the experts or ancestors of Eternal Chaotic World used for recording secret skills and important information. King of Venomous Worms' voice was heard. Paradise Stone? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Jian Wushuang, use your soul power to examine the internals of this Paradise Stone, King of Venomous Worms instructed. Jian Wushuang nodded and covered the Paradise Stone with his soul power. Suddenly, there was a tremendous momentum of information that surged out. The secret skill of Tianyuan. This is it. Jian Wushuang was shocked. The secret skill of soul attack. King of Venomous Worms let out an exclamation. In the Paradise Stone there was a secret skill, and it was the extremely rare secret skill of soul attack. Soul power is extremely high-end on its own, while the secret skill of soul attack is, just like the universal Tao scripture that your master gave you, rare. You're that lucky that you got the secret skill of soul attack? King of Venomous Worms exclaimed. No, maybe it's not luck. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said solemnly. Although I possess soul power, I could only integrate my soul power into sword principle for an attack. Although it would be considered as a soul attack too, it wouldn't allow me to give full play to my soul power entirely. I really am lacking of the real secret skill of soul attack. I happen to be lacking it and I got it? And I got it when I am about to leave Tianyuan Mystery Land? How could it be such a coincidence? Jian Wushuang, you mean? King of Venomous Worms lowered his voice as he thought of the possibility too. Jian Wushuang didn't speak, but lifted his head. He looked afar at the vast expanse of whiteness before him, into the depth of Tianyuan Mystery Land. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and said, although I do not know your name, I, Jian Wushuang, will owe you a debt of gratitude for your kindness. I'll definitely repay you in the future. Then, Jian Wushuang stood there for a while before he left. In the cave dwelling in the depths of Tianyuan Mystery Land, the woman in the Taoist robe opened her eyes again. Definitely repay me in the future? This young man is quite interesting. The woman in Taoist robe shook her head and became turned quiet again. Soon enough, the 30 geniuses in Tianyuan Mystery Land were all sent out. In the 10 years' duration, the geniuses were more or less rewarded, while Jian Wushuang was obviously the one with the biggest reward. Not only did he increase his soul power tremendously with the aid of the assault of consciousness, he even obtained the secret skill of soul attack in the end. The secret skill of soul attack in particular was extremely hard to come by. The secret skill of Tianyuan. After getting out from Tianyuan Mystery Land, Jian Wushuang couldn't wait, but started to study the secret skill. The method of using soul power is very unique. This is the secret skill of soul attack? Jian Wushuang praised. Jian Wushuang, back when I was wandering around Eternal Chaotic World with King Luozhen, I've seen countless experts. I've also seen some people who pulled the secret skill of soul attack. But from what I see, this secret skill of Tianyuan would be an extremely strong secret skill of soul attack, King of Venomous Worms said. Such an impressive secret skill of soul attack wouldn't be easy to perform. I understand, Jian Wushuang nodded. The secret skill of Tianyuan had 4 levels of attack in total. Even at the very first level, inextinguishable light required an enormous amount of soul power to be pulled off. Jian Wushuang just ignited his soul power not long ago, and it had yet to take shape as a real soul power. Hence, his soul power wasn't as immense. According to the standard of my current soul power, I could barely pull off inextinguishable light. I reckon I would only be able to do it once, and my soul power would be exhausted. Jian Wushuang sighed. Of course, although it was difficult to perform, its power was definitely ferocious. Jian Wushuang, after 10 years of training in Tianyuan Mystery Land, the strength of your soul has improved tremendously. It could be compared favorably to a universe god in the third heaven. Even if you do not perform the secret skill of Tianyuan, I reckon there wouldn't be many universe gods in the second heaven who could resist your soul attack performed via sword principle. With this point alone, you are already at the peak of universe god in the second heaven. If you could perform the first level of the secret skill of Tianyuan, inextinguishable light, even if you could only do it once, the soul attack is enough to threaten a universe god in the third heaven. If I'm not mistaken, with this technique alone, it's even possible to kill a universe god in the third heaven straightway. King of Venomous Worms said. To kill a universe god in the third heaven? Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. Universe god in the third heaven is so easily killed. Although Jian Wushuang replied so, he was extremely delighted. He knew that he had himself another trump card, which was the secret skill of Tianyuan. Jian Wushuang, with your current power, although it is still risky to travel to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries alone, it is still equally possible for you to reach there alive. You can depart now, King of Venomous Worms said. If so, let me bid farewell with Lord Wucang and I shall make a move. Jian Wushuang smiled. He immediately sent a message to inform Lord Wucang. Wucang knew long ago that Jian Wushuang wanted to leave, so he wasn't surprised. Soon, Jian Wushuang left Snow Dojo, left Snow Kingdom, and departed towards the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Chapter 1343, The Ancient Star Sea. Chapter 1343, The Ancient Star Sea. Jian Wushuang's spaceship was flying fast in the dark heaven. I have revised the route to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. You can have a look. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang started to read the route. 2 routes? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, one is going through the ancient Star Sea, and the other is bypassing it. King of Venomous Worms explained. What are the differences? A lot. The ancient Star Sea is a dangerous place in the eternal chaotic world. Though it is nothing for those almighty, it poses a big risk to universe gods. King of Venomous Worms explained. In the ancient Star Sea, there are not only natural crises, but also many exotic beasts that are hostile to human cultivators. They may hurt you. Therefore, the first choice is full of risks of death, but it's also time efficient. It will take less than 2,000 years to get there. And the second choice is safer, but it takes more time. How much time does the second option take? Jian Wushuang asked. It's hard to predict. Maybe 30,000 years. King of Venomous Worms answered. 30,000 years? Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had cultivated for less than 10,000 years. As he was unwilling to waste 30,000 years on the journey, he chose to go through the ancient Star Sea. I guessed you would choose the first one. I was right. King of Venomous Worms smiled. So before getting to the ancient Star Sea, you should try your best to improve your skills and power. The stronger you are, the more possibility you will have of surviving. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded, and he soon started to cultivate. He had just left the snow sacred land with his spaceship, and it would take at least 100 years for him to arrive at the margin of the ancient Star Sea. It was long enough for him. I have just created the advanced rank 2 unique skill. With the accumulation of swordsmanship, I could definitely create more powerful unique skills. Jian Wushuang was confident. I will spend these 100 years on improving my unique skills. Jian Wushuang was quite determined. The journey in the dark heaven was boring, through which Jian Wushuang used all his time to cultivate. And the 110 years passed soon. Jian Wushuang, you are now close to the ancient Star Sea. Don't get to the sea alone or you will die. King of Venomous Worms said. Go to the land 6 first. So Jian Wushuang followed the suggestion of King of Venomous Worms, and drove his spaceship to a floating Land 6. The Land 6 was small. It was not a universe, but a station for human cultivators. Jian Wushuang now stood on the Land 6. Many geniuses from different universes or kingdoms came to the Land 6. They were all mighty talents. And Jian Wushuang, as a universe god, seemed trivial. Are they all coming for the ancient star sea? Jian Wushuang murmured. Of course. Some talents go there to cultivate. Some go through the sea as a time-efficient way to go to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. King of Venomous Worms said. They often team up to get through the ancient star sea, which increases the possibility of success. Team up. Jian Wushuang was interested. There are many teams of cultivators who are going to the ancient star sea. You can choose one, and go to the sea with other universe gods. I think many teams would welcome you since you are a peak universe god in the first heaven. King of Venomous Worms suggested to Jian Wushuang. Okay, I will have a try. Jian Wushuang started to find teams to get through the ancient star sea. Soon he received an invitation, and joined a large team, with around 100 cultivators. The cultivators in the team were at least universe gods in the first heaven. 3 days later, at the margin of the heaven, a huge, ancient spaceship was ready to depart. Be prepared, guys. We are departing in an hour. The person who was talking was an elderly god with a green robe. His breath was full of power. Apparently, he was a universe god in the third heaven. Jian Wushuang was one member of the team. He knew that the elderly god was named Yushan, and that he was the leader of the team. The team was made up of 140 cultivators. Among them, there were 3 universe gods in the third heaven, 20 in the second heaven, and the rest were all in the first heaven. 1 hour passed. The ancient spaceship departed in the direction of the ancient star sea. Jian Wushuang sat at the deck of the spaceship, ignoring other talents nearby, some of whom were chatting, and some were cultivating. Jian Wushuang raised his head and found a boy. The boy was around 12 years old. He was staring curiously at a bald man in front of him. Chapter 1344 Duan Lingfeng. Chapter 1344 Duan Lingfeng. On the bald man's face, there was a strange pattern while the youth was obviously staring at that pattern. The bald man who was cultivating seemed to notice the youth, and he opened his eyes to glare at the youth with his cold stare. The rage in his eyes terrified the youth as the youth moved backwards. Then, there was a lady in red who walked forward and embraced the youth as she apologized. I'm sorry, my brother didn't intend to disturb your cultivation. Universe Master? The bald man stole a glance at the lady in red, and there was a stroke of coldness on his face. Who brought the 2 Universe Masters on board? Doesn't he know how dangerous the ancient star sea is? How could he bring 2 Universe Masters to drag us down? The bald man was very loud, and everyone on the deck stared. When they saw the lady in red and the strong, honest youth, their facial expressions changed. They could tell that the lady in red was merely a universe master, while the strong honey youth was just an 11-year-old kid who had only just started cultivation. There was not much power to begin with. They were going to go through the ancient star sea, which would be very dangerous. Hence, the threshold to join the troop was to be a universe god in the first heaven. But the lady in red and the youth were obviously just universe masters. How could they join the troop? Who brought them up? Hurry up. Otherwise, I shall kick them off the ship directly. The bald man bellowed, and his voice traveled across the spaceship. Just then, the cabin's door suddenly opened, and there was a figure that moved out slowly. It was a young man in a white robe who was carrying a saber. He had long brown hair, sleepy eyes, slender body, and a cold manner. He looked dignified and dauntless. The young man in white robe walked before the bald man and looked down in his eyes. I brought the 2 of them up. Do you have an opinion? The young man in the white robe looked calm, but with every word he uttered, his aura grew stronger. When he finished his sentence, his aura was at a terrifying level which suppressed the bald man. The bald man's face was distorted. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't say a word. Brother Duan. The lady in red pulled the young man in white robe's sleeve, and his aura slowed down slightly. Humph. The young man in white robe humped. Then he looked at the lady in red and the youth and said, "Let's go into the cabin." The lady in red nodded, and then they returned into the cabin with the youth. On the deck, a discussion was stirred. "The one earlier is one of the universe god in the third heaven in our troop, right? The lady called him Brother Duan, means that his surname is Duan. I wonder what his name is. Just now that person I know him. He's called Duan Lingfeng." Duan Lingfeng. Everyone immediately looked over. The universe god who spat the name Duan Lingfeng slowly started with his story. Mr. Duan Lingfeng is a universe god in the third heaven, but he just underwent his god's test in the third heaven not long ago. I heard that the movement was not small when he underwent his god's test. There were even experts who saw him undergo his god's test with their own eyes, and said that the god's test that he went through was a mind test. Mind test? Everyone was astonished. Even Jian Wushuang was stunned when he heard the word mind test. In the eternal chaotic world, not everyone was qualified to undergo the scariest mind test among the three kinds of God's test. Under normal circumstances, Mr. Duan Lingfeng passed through a mind test. His power definitely would be extremely strong. Unfortunately, he just passed the test not long ago. His divine power has just started to transform, to be like a universe god in the third heaven. Hence, I'm afraid he isn't that strong yet either, the universe god continued. Is that so? That's such a pity. Everyone continued to chat for a while, until the deck finally quieted down again. When Jian Wushuang heard the people discuss him around him, he remembered the name Duan Lingfeng. The spaceship was moving in ancient star sea at a speed that wasn't too fast nor too slow. 3 years flew past. In the 3 years, Jian Wushuang's troop was rather calm. There wasn't any danger, but merely 2 interruptions by some exotic beasts. On the deck. Wow! 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 There were swift and fierce sword lights. Very soon the training ended. Brother Wushuang, what do you think about my swordsmanship? In 3 years' time, the strong, honest youth had grown up quite a bit, and he was smiling right before Jian Wushuang. Not too shabby. If your foundation of swordsmanship were to be improved, that'd be great. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. In the 3 years, he had got along with the rest of the troop quite well, especially the youth before him, Luo Hai. At the beginning, Luo Hai was practicing swordsmanship alone on the deck, while Jian Wushuang watched by the side. But when Luo Hai finished practicing, he commented casually. Luo Hai was extremely delighted with his advice. Ever since, Luo Hai had always looked to him for pointers. Luo Hai, your brother Duan is a universe god in the third heaven. You have been by his side all the time. Why didn't you practice with a saber, only a sword? Jian Wushuang asked. Ever since I was born, my sister and I are always with Brother Duan. But Brother Duan never taught me how to use a saber, and I don't like sabers. I prefer swords. I must become a swordsman that travel the universe in the future, just like my father, Luo Hai said. Oh, your father uses swords too? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows as he smiled. Just then, shriek. There was a sharp shrill. On the spaceship, those who were originally chatting casually or cultivating were suddenly shaken. Their gazes were cast to the source of the shrill. They saw a sea of purple torrents surging towards the spaceship at an unusually swift speed. There were sharp shrills among the purple surging torrent. That is, it's a purple martin. So many purple martins. Quick, turn the direction of the spaceship. Raging voices were heard across the spaceship. Purple martins were one of the scariest pack exotic beasts in ancient star sea. Purple martins had always been hostile to human cultivators. They killed each and every human cultivator without mercy every time they saw one. Then there was a pack of purple martins before them. No way, it's too late. The one who controlled the spaceship was the leader of the troop. The elderly man in a green robe, his face grew grave. He wanted to change the direction of the spaceship as fast as possible, but he still couldn't change it in time. Chapter 1345. A fierce battle full with swords and blood. Chapter 1345. A fierce battle full with swords and blood. Booming. The purple flood immediately submerged the spaceship, making resounding noises. Numerous purple martins were hitting the barrier of the spaceship. The barrier almost was shaking and almost crashed. "Damn it!" Yushan shouted. "All the universe gods of the second heaven should take actions to find the leader of those purple martins and kill it." Then he rushed out of the barrier. Many universe gods of the second heaven didn't hesitate, and followed him immediately. "Luo Yu, Luo Hai, go into the cabin." After telling them to hide from danger, Duan Lingfeng got into the battle. Luo Yu and Luo Hai entered into the cabin for shelter. Bang! A fierce battle began out of the spaceship. 3 universe gods in the third heaven, and almost 20 universe gods in the second heaven fought together violently against the purple martins. The heavens roared. But soon, bang! Flashes of purple light burst out, breaking the 3 heads of the universe gods in the third heaven apart. What? Damn it! And those fighters soon found 5 much larger purple martins, rising from the purple flood. Those purple martins each had 3 golden lines on their backs. 5 3-line purple martins? Yushan was shocked. The more powerful the purple martins were, the more lines they had on their backs. 1-line purple martins were as powerful as universe gods in the first heaven. 2-line purple martins were as powerful as universe gods in the second heaven. 3-line purple martins were as powerful as universe gods in the third heaven. 5 3-line purple martins were able to contain 5 universe gods in the third heaven. Apart from that, there were 10 2-line purple martins and numerous 3-line purple martins. Boom! Those purple martins popped up. 20 universe gods were far less powerful than much a powerful group of purple martins. After just a moment, the barrier of the spaceship crashed. And all universe gods in the first heaven were confronted with the rising threat. "Watch out! Come on!" In the sounds of screaming and shouting, all universe gods in the first heaven, including Jian Wushuang, carried their weapons and started to fight against the purple martins. Jian Wushuang, with his eyes full of anger, beat a purple martin with his blood mountain sword. The purple martin had intended to kill Jian Wushuang, but as Jian Wushuang waved his sword toward it, it soon lost consciousness. It was torn apart. But Jian Wushuang didn't stop. He waved his sword toward other purple martins. Another 2 purple martins died. Jian Wushuang killed 3 purple martins altogether. But it didn't have much of an effect on the large group of purple martins. At this time, bang! A roar came from the spaceship cabin. Almost 10 purple martins rushed toward it. Other universe gods didn't pay much attention to it. But Duan Lingfeng felt alarmed. Oh no! His face distorted, and he rushed to the cabin like crazy, but he couldn't arrive in time. He saw that Luo Yu and Luo Hai were scared. As many as 10 purple martins rushed to Luo Yu and Luo Hai. No universe gods could help them. At this moment, Jian Wushuang waved his sword to the spaceship, swiftly like autumn wind, and leaving no trace. Fizz! 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 All purple martins around Luo Yu and Luo Hai stopped rushing and fell down. Swoosh! Jian Wushuang flew to Luo Hai and Luo Yu. "Brother Wushuang." Luo Hai got excited when he saw Jian Wushuang. "Stay with me, don't move around, okay?" Jian Wushuang told them. They nodded vehemently. Duan Lingfeng rushed to the spaceship, and finally felt relieved after he saw Luo Yu and Luo Hai were safe. Then he turned around and looked at 5 large 3-line purple martins. He felt furious. Luo Yu and Luo Hai almost died because of these monsters. Duan Lingfeng clenched his hands and felt a strong desire to kill those 3-line purple martins. Go to hell! A flash of blood-red light burst out from Duan Lingfeng. His figure appeared in front of a 3-line purple martin. Then he waved his sword. Bang! A blood-red sword light flashed. Silently. And suddenly the boundless battlefield went silent without any sound. Is that it? Yushan and other universe gods turned around and looked at Duan Lingfeng. What? Jian Wushuang was also attracted to the sword light. That sword light turned everything into silence. Yushan and other universe gods' jaws dropped. Jian Wushuang was also shocked. Everything in the heavens came to a standstill. Swoosh! The blood-red light stabbed into the three-lined purple marten. The three-lined purple marten, which was as powerful as universe gods in the third heaven, could hardly resist, and died under the attack of Duan Lingfeng. And Duan Lingfeng strode forward to the second three-lined purple marten. Bang! Another flash of blood-red sword light appeared. And it was still silent. Swoosh! 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 Just like this, once Duan Lingfeng strode and waved his sword, he could kill a three-lined purple marten. Soon he had killed all the three-lined purple martens. 5 waves of his sword, 5 three-lined purple martens killed. All the human cultivators couldn't believe that. Those 2-lined purple martens and 3-lined purple martens roared crazily. They felt scared that their 5 leaders were all killed. They disappeared immediately from the huge purple flood. Chapter 1346, The Real Genius. Chapter 1346, The Real Genius. The purple martens fled, and the crisis was over. On the spaceship, everyone was still in a shock, and had yet to come back to reality. They were all astonished by Duan Lingfeng's 5 incredible strokes. The 5 strokes were too terrifying. Jian Wushuang, you have come across a real genius, King of Venomous Worms said in Jian Wushuang's head. A real genius? Duan Lingfeng? Jian Wushuang stunned. It's him. King of Venomous Worms sounded rather serious. If I didn't sense it wrongly, Dean Lingfeng should be quite badly injured. To be more accurate, he was poisoned, and that caused him to be unable to give full play to his power. Otherwise, he could have killed the 5 3-marked purple martens long ago. Badly injured? Jian Wushuang was shocked. He was badly injured, power severely hindered, but he still could kill 5 3-marked purple marten in an instant. Don't find it strange. Duan Lingfeng is really impressive. If he wasn't badly injured, if he didn't just pass through God's test, and his divine power wasn't just starting to transform, forget about the 5 3-marked purple marten. Even in the entire eternal chaotic world, he could definitely be unrivaled among the countless peak universe gods in the third heaven. He has such ability, King of Venomous Worms said. In the eternal chaotic world, among countless peak universe god in the third heaven, he could be unrivaled. Jian Wushuang was astonished. He is a real genius. Even in the vast expanse of the eternal chaotic world, he's the top super genius. He is totally different from those geniuses you met in Snow Dojo, Snow Kingdom. Those geniuses would only be qualified to carry his shoes for him, King of Venomous Worms said. Of course, although Duan Lingfeng is the real genius, you're not that much weaker than him. Jian Wushuang heard that, and there was a surge of emotions. King of Venomous Worms was experienced and knowledgeable. For him to give such high compliments Duan Lingfeng must be really impressive. Before everyone's shocked gaze, Duan Lingfeng retrieved his saber and came to the spaceship. He came before Luo Yu and Luo Hai. Yu Hai, are you okay? Duan Lingfeng asked. We're okay. Luo Yu shook her head. It's Brother Wushuang that saved us, Luo Hai immediately added. Duan Lingfeng looked at Jian Wushuang. Thank you. Duan Lingfeng expressed his gratitude. Don't mention it. What's more, if it wasn't for you killing the 5 3-marked purple martens, I'm afraid no one in our troop could have escaped. It should be us who thank you. Jian Wushuang smiled. Duan Lingfeng nodded faintly, but didn't say anything else. The universe gods on the spaceship finally came back to reality and slowly recovered. Their troop lost quite a few universe gods in the fight earlier, and there were many that were injured. Besides, the surrounding setup on the spaceship was broken. Yushan had to repair it. When the recovery work was almost done, the spaceship continued its journey. In the corner of the spaceship, Jian Wushuang lay alone. Swoosh! A wine pot was thrown directly at Jian Wushuang, and he caught it with ease. Let's have a drink together. Duan Lingfeng took a seat. He had a wine pot in his hand too. Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows, but he didn't refuse. Luckily you saved Yu and Hai in time today. Otherwise I would be too embarrassed to see Brother Luo Yan, Duan Lingfeng said coldly. Brother Luo Yan? Jian Wushuang was confused. Brother Luo Yan is their father. He's my best friend. Duan Lingfeng said. Not long ago when I was undergoing my god's test in the third heaven, my enemies suddenly came to look for me. Brother Luo Yen fought alone against 3 universe god in the third heaven, fully aware that he wasn't their match, in order to stop them from bothering me. In the end, I passed my god's test, but Brother Luo Yen died in my enemy's hand. It can be said that I owe Brother Luo Yen my life. Jian Wushuang heard and secretly admired Brother Luo Yen in the story. He knew that he wasn't the enemy's match, but in order to not let them bother his best friend's god test, he blocked the 3 universe gods in the third heaven forcefully until he sacrificed himself. The friendship ran really deep. Before Brother Luo Yen died, he told me to send you and Hai back to his hometown Imperial World. I must send them back to his hometown regardless of my life. But now, Duan Lingfeng shook his head as he blamed himself. If it wasn't because of Jian Wushuang, Luo Yu and Luo Hai might really be dead. If I'm not mistaken, you should be quite heavily injured, huh? Jian Wushuang asked. You can tell. Duan Lingfeng looked surprised. You must be quite badly injured, and it is affecting your fighting power. Otherwise, you could have killed the few 3 marked purple martens right at the beginning, Jian Wushuang said. True, Duan Lingfeng nodded. I am poisoned by my enemy and I can't use too much of my power. I killed the few 3 marked purple martens, at the risk of poison spreading to my heart. Is that so? Jian Wushuang was shocked and said, What kind of poison is that? I might have a way to cure it for you. Speaking of antidotes, Jian Wushuang was an expert on them. It's okay. Duan Lingfeng shook his head. I have kept the poison under control. Give me some time. In less than 100 years, I will be able to clear the poison. If so, why didn't you clear the poison first before you come to Ancient Star Sea? Jian Wushuang was confused. Ancient Star Sea, just how dangerous was it? He had yet to recover to his peak, and he had brought 2 universe masters to Ancient Star Sea. Isn't this too risky? I have no choice because my enemy is coming after me. I have to leave immediately, Duan Lingfeng said. Oh, I see. Jian Wushuang understood. Jian Wushuang. Duan Lingfeng suddenly looked over, as he also knew Jian Wushuang's name. I saw you killing 10 over purple martens with 1 stroke. You are quite strong, Duan Lingfeng said. I'm not up to your par, Jian Wushuang smiled. If I'm not mistaken, the reason why you want to go through the Ancient Star Sea is to head to the legendary 10 cultivation sanctuaries, right? Duan Lingfeng asked. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries. There was a spark that appeared in Duan Lingfeng's eyes. The legend says that there are countless geniuses and experts. It's a pity that I still have tasks on hand. Otherwise I'd go there too. I'd like to see what sort of monsters there are in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Chapter 1347. A Formidable Enemy. Chapter 1347. A Formidable Enemy. Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang talked for a long time in the spaceship. Jian Wushuang felt happy to be exchanging ideas with Duan Lingfeng, a real genius. And it was also a pleasure for Duan Lingfeng to make friends with Jian Wushuang. The spaceship kept traveling through the Ancient Star Sea. The Ancient Star Sea was full of dangers, in which there were beasts much more scary and violent than the purple martens Jian Wushuang's team had met. But the team was powerful enough, especially with the top talent, Duan Lingfeng, to tackle any problems or dangers. The 40 years passed quickly. Jian Wushuang's team finally arrived at the verge of the Ancient Star Sea. We are already at the verge of the Ancient Star Sea. I guess we can leave here within 1 month. Finally, I have been feeling nervous along the way. We are all terrified. We couldn't survive without Duan Lingfeng being here. Everyone was talking happily. After all, they thought they could get free of the anxiety and fear that they had been feeling all day and all night in the past 40 years. However, they didn't realize that at the peak of the mountain that they were heading for, a black-robed man felt them coming and opened his eyes. The black-robed man said, I feel a calling, a very strong calling. Who is giving me that calling? The black-robed man stood up and looked around. He looked in the direction from which the spaceship came, and went into ecstasy. It's my prey. A very delicious prey for which I have a crazily strong desire. I could have a feast today. Then the black-robed man transformed into a spirit and flew toward the spaceship. Come on, my prey. I am coming. And passengers in the spaceship had no idea of what was happening. Jian Wushuang was sitting on the deck of the spaceship with a flagon beside him, watching a young talent practicing swordsmanship. The young talent was Luo Hai, who had grown up. Within 40 years, the gifted Luo Hai had improved his swordsmanship a lot by studying in the ancient Star Sea, and also with the help of elixirs given to him by Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. Shoo! Luo Hai waved his sword, producing a dazzling light. Soon Luo Hai stopped his exercises, and the light disappeared. Brother Wushuang, what do you think of the swordsmanship I have created? Luo Hai asked Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang said, not bad. As you have already created your own sword principle, you can develop your swordsmanship based on it, so that you can unleash the potential power of your sword principle. Thank you, Brother Wushuang. Can I follow you as your disciple? I have really improved a lot with your help. My disciple. Luo Yu and Duan Lingfeng also looked at them. Jian Wushuang shook his head, smiling. I am not qualified, actually. Luo Hai was a little disappointed, but he didn't continue the conversation. Bang! Suddenly a very strong consciousness attack hit everyone in the spaceship. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng frowned. Other universe gods also felt alarmed and looked in the direction of the attack. Shoo! A black-robed man appeared at the front of the deck and intercepted the spaceship. Everyone in the crowd was now looking at the man through the barrier. Only a man. He comes here alone intending to intercept us. He seems to be powerful. Everyone in the crowd was discussing it. The team leader in the spaceship, Yushan, asked politely, Is there anything that we could help you with? Yushan felt that the man was at least at the level of universe gods in the third heaven. Haha. The black-robed man didn't pay much attention to Yushan, but stared at only one man on the spaceship while wearing a cunning and vicious smile. He was looking at Jian Wushuang. You are my prey now. The black-robed man murmured, licking his lips. He was extremely excited. His face turned red, and his eyes were full of craziness. What wonderful prey you are. That blood of his smells so good. The black-robed man's voice was heard by members on the spaceship. They frowned, feeling the coming danger. Jian Wushuang was also alarmed. He had already felt the craziness in the man's eyes. Obviously, the black-robed man was coming for him. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang, You are in danger now. I think that man is from the Sky-Devouring clan. Sky-Devouring clan? Jian Wushuang was reminded immediately of two Sky-Devouring clan descendants he met in his hometown of the Green Fire World. The patriarch of Empyrean glory, and his son Emperor Yen. He had heard from King of Venomous Worms about the Sky-Devouring clan. Chapter 1348, Duan Lingfeng's Choice. Chapter 1348, Duan Lingfeng's Choice. Sky-Devouring clan. It's one of the top clans in Eternal Chaotic World. They feed on exotic beasts' blood. They are overbearing with almost no natural enemy. Plus, a pure Sky-Devouring clan is born with natural senses towards certain blood lineages. I reckon the Sky Devourer, before you could sense your ancient god blood flowing in you. That's why he rushed over. The royal ancient god blood is extremely attractive for the Sky-Devouring clan. Hence, he wants to kill you now and consume your ancient god blood. King of Venomous Worms said in a serious voice. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, and he saw madness and greed in the eyes of the man in black robe. On the spaceship, Yushan saw that the man in the black robe didn't respond for so long. He bellowed, Mister, if you do not move aside, please do not blame me for not being polite. Impolite? Hee hee. I'd like to see how impolite you can be. The man in the black robe laughed maliciously. At the same time, there was a terrifying power erupting from his body. The strong aura exceeded the scope of an ordinary universe god in the third heaven. It was almost at the level of a peak universe god in the third heaven. Peak universe god in the third heaven. Every cultivator on the spaceship gasped simultaneously. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. In the ranking of universe gods, every level makes a huge difference. An ordinary universe god in the third heaven, and a peak universe god in the third heaven, was two entirely different concepts. Plus, the man in the black robe before him was a member of the sky-devouring clan. With the power of his blood lineage, he was definitely a scary one among peak universe god in the third heaven. Jian Wushuang reckoned that the man in black robe was much scarier compared to the universe god in the third heaven from Snow Dojo Chen Feng. Although there was some difference, it wouldn't be too far off. Such an expert, Jian Wushuang wouldn't be able to deal with in his current state. Even though they were in this troop, even though there was an expert like Duan Lingfeng, they might not be able to win against an expert at such level. Hee, human cultivator. The man in the black robe smiled maliciously and his voice spread. I am only interested in one of you. Hand over that person to me, and the rest of you can leave. He only wants one person. He's not interested in us. Would one of us be his enemy? He chased us all the way here? It stirred a commotion on the spaceship. Yushan took a deep breath and asked, I wonder who you are looking for. It's him. The man in black robe pointed from afar. Everyone looked at the direction the man in black robe was pointing at and saw Jian Wushuang. It's Jian Wushuang. It's him. The universe god in the third heaven came for him. The universe gods looked at Jian Wushuang under a different light. Brother Wushuang, Luo Hai and Luo Yu looked worried. As the leader of the troop, Yushan looked at Jian Wushuang for a very long time until he said in a cold voice, Jian Wushuang, I'm sorry, please leave the spaceship. Everyone's gaze turned cold. At such a crucial moment, everyone seemed to have made a decision. Give him Jian Wushuang. Fickleness of human nature. Jian Wushuang saw and laughed at himself but wasn't surprised. In the eternal chaotic world, it was extremely cruel and cold. Previously, when Jian Wushuang revealed his decent fighting power, the troop of universe gods accepted him delightedly. However, when a strong enemy came and made clear that he wanted Jian Wushuang, the universe gods gave him up without hesitation in order to protect themselves. After all, they didn't build any relationship with Jian Wushuang. They were merely a troop that was temporarily formed in order to pass through ancient Star Sea. It was only normal that the universe gods wasn't willing to risk their lives to save Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't bother to blame them. Then, Jian Wushuang slowly walked towards the exit of the spaceship. Just as he walked, he quickly communicated with the King of Venomous Worms. King of Venomous Worms, you told me previously that there were many kinds in Sky-Devouring clan. Patriarch of Empyrean Glory, who I met back then was a Sky-Devourer bat. The next moment, Golden Rock King released the string. Shoo! A flowing red light instantly pierced through the void and flew toward Jian Wushuang. Even though Golden Rock King was unable to bring the longbow's powers into full play, the flowing red light it shot out still looked extremely aggressive and ferocious. More importantly, it was amazingly fast. It seemed to have approached Jian Wushuang in a split second. Chapter 1349, Amazing Duan Lingfeng. Chapter 1349, Amazing Duan Lingfeng. The vicious man in a black robe had obviously underestimated how powerful Duan Lingfeng was. Shoo! Duan Lingfeng waved his sword, cutting half of the palm of the black-robed man. Then Duan Lingfeng continued his attack, intending to cut the man's head. Damn it! The black-robed man quickly jumped away and avoided another attack after his palm was cut. He looked at his wounded palm and frowned. And Duan Lingfeng held his sword and stood in the heavens. Idiot! Duan Lingfeng, you would die now if I recovered my full strength. The black-robed man felt nervous when hearing those words. Jian Wushuang was also shocked by Duan Lingfeng's power. Jian Wushuang had heard about Duan Lingfeng's incomparable power. If Duan Lingfeng could recover his full strength and totally unleash his soul power, he would be invincible among the universe gods in the third heaven. Now he had just 60% of his power. But despite that, Duan Ling cut half of a palm of one man from Sky-Devouring clan. the black-robed man said. So, before I eat Jian Wushuang, I had better clear all of the obstacles in the way. He smirked and immediately recovered his palm, leaving no scars at all. Then after a second of simmering, his power skyrocketed, and his figure enlarged and covered Duan Lingfeng. But Duan Lingfeng was indifferent. He strode forward. The seventh skill. Duan Lingfeng waved his sword again. The sword attack was still done briefly and silently. Bang! But Duan Lingfeng was hit by the black-robed man's power, and he had to jump backwards. The black-robed man laughed. Your skills are just mediocre. Nothing to me. After being attacked, the robed man kept focus and exercised his real power. His 100% power. But Duan Lingfeng was still calm. His eyes sent out an appalling light. Come on! Duan Lingfeng shouted. The eighth skill. Duan Lingfeng waved his sword again. Another blood sword light. The heavens darkened. Two opponents rushed toward each other. Bang! The heavens blared again. Their figures collided violently with each other, and they both jumped backward. Duan Lingfeng now felt a strong sense of excitement. A feeling of aggressiveness rose within his body. Not bad, the black-robed man said. You are better than other universe gods in the third heaven that I have met. So, take my next attack. The ninth skill. Duan Lingfeng shouted resoundingly. Then, within a second, Duan Lingfeng waved his sword again, and accumulated an unimaginable power. Another one? The black-robed man was shocked, and he didn't underestimate Duan Lingfeng anymore. He felt that although Duan Lingfeng's breath hadn't recovered, he still had incomparable power. And the last two attacks were more powerful than the previous ones. Shoo! Another blood light. The whole heaven was silent. A dead silence. The black-robed man experienced a rising force within his body. His power and figure exploded, and he turned back into his original shape. His original shape looked like a giant gorilla, scary and savage. After turning into his frightful original shape, he rushed to Duan Lingfeng with all of his power. Bang! However, the black-robed man was hit back by the collision with Duan Lingfeng. Now the black-robed man was at a disadvantageous position. But Duan Lingfeng was still standing stably in his original place. Wow! Looking at Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang was impressed and even shocked. King of Venomous Worms said to Jian Wushuang, I have told you that Duan Lingfeng's power is at a further level than you might imagine. What level? Jian Wushuang didn't understand. But he knew that he himself was still far from that level. Bang! The black-robed man got furious and impatient. His original shape continued to grow, while his power and breath kept rising. He generated an appalling evil spirit, creating an evil storm in the heavens. Jian Wushuang felt more pressure from the black-robed man. The black-robed man is by no means an ordinary sky-devouring clan descendant. His secret skills are also powerful. King of Venomous Worms said. Although Duan Lingfeng was powerful, he hasn't recovered to his full strength, and the black-robed man now has an edge over him in terms of soul power. Duan Lingfeng is also enduring the poison in his body. Jian Wushuang, you should give him a hand, or he may be defeated. After hearing that, Jian Wushuang asked King of Venomous Worms, the sky-devouring clan descendants aren't good at consciousness attacks, right? Yes. They accumulated power by eating exotic beasts instead of cultivating. As such, they are not so good at consciousness attacks. However, the black-robed man is a peak universe god of the third heaven. Ordinary consciousness attacks are nothing to him. Jian Wushuang, though your soul power is more powerful than your peers at the same level, I don't think it's realistic for you to attack the black-robed man with a soul attack. Chapter 1350, Exterminate. Chapter 1350, Exterminate. Unrealistic. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. I never expected to kill him with my soul attack. I only wanted to catch him by surprise in order to create an opportunity for Duan Lingfeng. This is unrealistic? Create an opportunity? King of Venomous King was shocked. If it was merely to create an opportunity, it might work. If so, I shall give it a try. I happen to have yet to put the secret skill of Tian Yuan to play. Today, let's try the power of the secret skill on this Sky Devourer. However, with my current soul power, I can only pull off the secret skill of Tian Yuan once. If I were to create an opportunity for Duan Lingfeng with the secret skill, I could only run for my life after he was killed or severely injured. In other words, I only have one chance. Jian Wushuang held his fists tight as his gaze grew solemn. Then Jian Wushuang sent a message to Duan Lingfeng. Duan Lingfeng, I will create an opportunity for you. It will be rather short, and it will pass almost instantly. You must grab this opportunity. Jian Wushuang sent a short message. Duan Lingfeng received the message as he was fighting against the man in the black robe. He looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. Jian Wushuang was just a universe god in the first heaven after all. He was able to create an opportunity for him. Jian Wushuang didn't explain further, but started taking various measures. Virum. A terrifying crimson flame erupted from Jian Wushuang. The crimson flame formed a huge fire sea and filled the entire universe. Jian Wushuang was right at the core of the fire sea, as though he was the king in the fire sea. The secret skill of Scarlet Kingdom was performed straight away. At the same time, the power of stars within his body was triggered entirely. If Scarlet Kingdom could merely increase the speed of Jian Wushuang's attack, then the secret skill of Star, as the scariest and the most fundamental secret skill for Lineage of Star, not only can the secret skill of Stars increase Jian Wushuang's power by tenfold in a short period of time, it could even enhance his soul attack by tenfold. Vroom vroom vroom. Jian Wushuang's soul power was burning insanely with an enormous amount of soul power surging. His eyes turned cold as he stared at the two of them who were fighting before him. The very next moment his body suddenly charged forward. The man in the black robe revealed his terrifying fighting power, and he was fighting against Duan Lingfeng face to face ferociously. During the fight, the man in the black robe had been keeping an eye on Jian Wushuang at the same time. After all, his target, his prey was Jian Wushuang. He naturally couldn't let Jian Wushuang run away. When Jian Wushuang charged forward, the man in the black robe noticed at the very moment. Asking for it. The man in the black robe immediately turned and charged towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang looked cold, but there was an absolute calmness in his faint gold eyes. Blood Mountain sword was in his hand when the man in the black robe turned to charge at him. Jian Wushuang wielded the sword subconsciously. He looked like he wielded the sword, and he really did swing out sword light. But in actual fact, it was just a cover-up to mislead his opponent. The true move lay in the soul power that Jian Wushuang transferred, with which he performed the secret skill of Tian Yuan. The first level of secret skill of Tian Yuan, inextinguishable light. Swoosh! A bunch of light that was transformed solely by soul power, and was sent out in silence. Under the cover of the sword light, no one noticed. Everyone on the scene, regardless if it was the man in the black robe, Duan Lingfeng, or even the universe gods on the spaceship afar, no one noticed the existence of the light bunch. The light bunch was hidden among the sword light, and charged towards the body of the man in the black robe. The man in the black robe glared at Jian Wushuang with madness. When he saw the sword light that Jian Wushuang sent out, he looked at it in disdain. It is futile. Along with the loud thud and soaring fierceness, the man in the black robe laughed maliciously. He held his fist and smashed it over ferociously. Hong! The sword light that Jian Wushuang swung out shattered while part of the impact of the terrifying power from the punch landed on Jian Wushuang's body. Poof! Jian Wushuang immediately spat a mouthful of blood. His face grew pale in that instant. However, it was merely part of the power, so it was sufficient to kill him. Luckily, I am only affected by parts of the power. If I were to take a punch directly, even though my divine body was strong, I wouldn't be able to take it. I would definitely die. Jian Wushuang's gaze was cold as he glared at the man in black robe. If I am severely injured, don't you think you'll be okay? Jian Wushuang saw the inextinguishable light immersing in the man in the black robe's body, under the concealment of his sword light. The man in black robe didn't notice the soul attack previously. When the inextinguishable light entered his body, he finally reacted. This is... The man in black robe contracted his pupils. After the light bunch entered his body, it suddenly formed a huge soul thorn and attacked his consciousness. Although he was a peak universe god in third heaven, the strength of consciousness was merely at the level of a universe god in the third heaven. Plus, he wasn't under any prevention. The soul attack with the secret skill of stars and Tian Yuan that Jian Wushuang performed gave him a direct hit. Suddenly, the man in the black robe groaned in pain, and he sounded hysterical. His eyes were bloodshot red as he hugged his head and shook insanely. Looking at the sight, Jian Wushuang quickly shouted, "Duan Lingfeng right now. Do it now." Behind the man in the black robe, Duan Lingfeng acted swiftly when he noticed the transformation. He seized the opportunity and took action. The 10th. Another crimson blade light descended. In the dark universe, there was only the crimson blade light that lit up the world. Everyone was uncontrollably attracted to the crimson blade light. The 10th. When Duan Lingfeng was fighting with the man in the black robe earlier, he had only played till the 9th. Then, the 10th was Duan Lingfeng's real strongest stroke. That stroke shocked Jian Wushuang entirely. The blade light appeared behind the man in the black robe like lightning. The man in the black robe noticed the light, and he forcefully resisted the pain his consciousness was feeling and wanted to block the attack. However, under the sharp pain in his consciousness, it was extremely tough for him to manipulate his divine power. He could barely lift his head, but in the end, the blade light swept past his palm brutally and over his neck. His head flew off just like that. Chapter 1351, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng left. Chapter 1351. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng left. His head was cut off by Jian Wushuang. The black-robed man stopped breathing. He died with his eyes still wide open and a shocked look. When he died, he was still in shock from the fact that he was killed by a universe god in the first heaven, and one who he would have been his prey. But now the black-robed man was dead. Boom! He fell downward. Finally, Jian Wushuang was relieved. Now I don't have to escape anymore, Jian Wushuang thought. Thanks to the secret skill of Tian Yuan, I got from the Tian Yuan mystery land. This secret skill is much more powerful than I had imagined. Jian Wushuang was excited after practicing the secret skill for the first time. But King of Venomous Worms said, "The deeper cause is that the man from the sky-devouring clan has a consciousness at the same level as a universe god in the third heaven. You already have the same soul power as a universe god in the third heaven. So combing the secret skill of Tian Yuan and the secret skills of Star Palace, you can pose a threat to a high-level universe god in the third heaven." Also, he was not very well prepared. Jian Wushuang smiled. Jian Wushuang had risked injuries and exercised the secret skill of Tian Yuan. And he had succeeded. Jian Wushuang. Duan Lingfeng came to him and said, "Are you okay?" "Fine." Jian Wushuang smiled. "Thank you for your help just now." He was grateful. Duan Lingfeng had indeed played an important role in the battle with the black-robed man. Without Duan Lingfeng distracting the black-robed man, Jian Wushuang could exercise any skill to kill him. "Did you use a consciousness attack just now?" Duan Lingfeng asked Jian Wushuang. "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded. "You killed a universe god in the third heaven with only the consciousness attack." "No, I combined other skills. And by the way, the black-robed man didn't have a strong consciousness." Jian Wushuang answered. Duan Lingfeng felt that Jian Wushuang was avoiding telling the whole truth. He looked at him, but didn't mention anything else. At that time, the spaceship was moving toward Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. Master Duan and Brother Jian. Yushan smiled to them. Yushan witnessed the whole battle. He knew how powerful Duan Lingfeng was. So he had to show his respect by calling Duan Lingfeng master. Jian Wushuang didn't show his full power, but he cooperated well with Duan Lingfeng and created good opportunities for killing the black-robed man. Humph! Duan Ling showed his hatred towards those who chose to hide in the spaceship. Yushan and other universe gods in the spaceship felt embarrassed. Jian Wushuang said, "Forgive them. They have no choice as they are not powerful enough. Yushan said, "Yes, master. No one could contain that black-robed man except you. So we had to." Jian Wushuang interrupted him at that moment and spoke to Duan Lingfeng. "I also have a spaceship not far from here. How about leaving the team and going together with me?" "Okay." Duan Lingfeng didn't hesitate, and he asked Luo Yu and Luo Hai to come with him. Luo Yu and Luo Hai followed Duan Lingfeng with hesitation. Other universe gods in the spaceship were surprised, but they didn't stop Jian Wushuang. If they had been at the center of the ancient Star Sea, they would beg Duan Lingfeng to stay because they needed his help to fight against danger. But now, they didn't have to do so as they would leave the ancient Star Sea within 1 month. Jian Wushuang waved his hands and summoned his spaceship. He got on board the spaceship with Duan Lingfeng, Luo Yu and Luo Hai. Then they left. "Humph, can't we survive without them?" Someone from Yushan's team said. "How arrogant they are. They believed that we would beg? Ridiculous." The universe gods had a heated discussion after Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng left. They didn't worry about their safety without them. "Let's go by ourselves," Yushan said, leading the team to depart again. But at that moment, boom, with a resounding noise, a herd of exotic beasts flooded onto Yushan's spaceship. They were giant colorful bats with sharp claws. They flew very fast, soon surrounding the whole spaceship. Damn it! Everyone was scared. And in an instant, the barrier of the spaceship was broken. A ferocious slaughter began. "Oh no! Oh my god! Damn it!" The universe gods screamed, asking Duan Lingfeng to give them a hand. However, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had already gone far away. Chapter 1352 Arrival. Chapter 1352 Arrival. 1 month later. Finally. On the spaceship, Jian Wushuang was rather delighted. In the ancient Star Sea, there was danger everywhere. Even if it was just him in the ancient Star Sea, he would be on high alert at all times. Now that the spaceship had left the ancient Star Sea region entirely, Jian Wushuang was finally relaxed. "Jian Wushuang, you want to head to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, and I have to send you and Hai to their hometown. We shall part ways in the world before us," Duan Lingfeng said. "All right," Jian Wushuang nodded. After the journey in ancient Star Sea, especially when they joined forces to kill the expert from Sky Devour clan, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng built a relationship. Jina Wushuang was more than happy to make friends with a real expert like Duan Lingfeng, who valued friendship. However, they each had their own agenda. Hence, they naturally had to part ways. Soon the spaceship arrived in the world. "Duan Lingfeng, I hope we cross path again in the future." Jian Wushuang bid farewell to the other three. "Wait till I send you and Hai back to their hometown. I will wander around the 10 cultivation sanctuaries too. By then we might meet again," Duan Lingfeng said. "I'd like it if when I see you, you're already a universe god in the 3rd heaven." "Haha, I will try," Jian Wushuang laughed. "Brother Wushuang, goodbye." Luo Yu and Luo Hai bid farewell to Jian Wushuang and left. In the boundless darkness of the void, a spaceship slowly traveled. "Jian Wushuang, as you pass through ancient Star Sea, the following route is comparatively safe. However, the journey is long." King of Venomous Worms' voice was heard. "Your current location to the nearest sanctuaries would require 1,000 years under the condition that there is no interruption. Besides, during the last part of the route, there is the boundless void that I was telling you about. The boundless void is where massacres happen widely. Many experts and geniuses who want to head to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries lost their lives when they were passing through the boundless void. Hence, you have to be extremely careful when you're there." "I understand," Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. "Let's go." Jian Wushuang continued his journey. In the following time, Jian Wushuang passed as he hurried through his journey and cultivated. During the process, luckily King of Venomous Worms always took the form of a human and kept Jian Wushuang company. That's why Jian Wushuang didn't find it too boring. On the way, he didn't come across too much of an incident. In the journey of his passing by all the kingdoms and worlds, It was rather smooth until he reached the boundless void. The boundless void was right next to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Due to its geological location, the massacre was insane, and the robbery was even more rampant. Jian Wushuang knew about how dangerous the boundless void was. Hence, when he entered the range of boundless void, he had been rather careful. Even so, when he passed through the boundless void, he came across two huge dangers, and both threatened his life. During the first time, he happened to run into a final battle between two gangs of robbers. One party was defeated while the other winning party started a massacre. All cultivators in the region were affected, and the same went for Jian Wushuang. He was surrounded by over 100 universe gods. He could only pull the secret skill of dragon blood, and made a narrow escape. As for the second time, he ran into a madman who was cultivating in the boundless void. The madman was a universe god in the third heaven. Not only was he strong, but he also loved killing. He wandered around the boundless void and killed whatever cultivator that he met, regardless if the person offended him or not. Jian Wushuang met the madman, and the madman took action immediately. Jian Wushuang couldn't resist at all, and it was even difficult for him to run away. In the end, Jian Wushuang performed the secret skill of Tian Yuan under duress. It led to severe injuries of the madman, by catching him by surprise. It also shocked the madman. The madman was worried that Jian Wushuang could still perform another similar consciousness attack. Hence, he didn't continue to pester Jian Wushuang. That's why Jian Wushuang got his life back. Besides those two times, the other encounters were well within Jian Wushuang's means. Just when Jian Wushuang passed through the boundless void, it was already 1,100 years later. 1,100 years was nothing to a universe god. However, it was actually lengthy for Jian Wushuang. It was the first time he had hurried a journey for such a long time. In the dark void, Jian Wushuang, it's one of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, East Royal Sanctuary. King of Venomous Worms said, "We're finally here." Jian Wushuang was beaming with joy, and he looked at a huge land at the end of his sight. It was also a huge land floating in the dark void. But as one of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, the East Royal Sanctuary was bigger than the ordinary world by a few folds. Let alone the experts on the land. The 10 cultivation sanctuaries were the experts' paradise. Very soon, Jian Wushuang arrived in the East Royal Sanctuary. The moment Jian Wushuang laid his feet on the East Royal Sanctuary, he could feel that the surroundings were filled with the soul power of the universe. As it was a cultivation sanctuary, it naturally possessed cultivation conditions, to which no other places could compare. In the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, regardless of if it was for cultivation or comprehension, the speed would definitely be a few times faster. No wonder so many geniuses and experts would take the risk to come to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. No other places could compare favorably with the cultivation conditions here, Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Jian Wushuang, don't be too happy just yet. You're at the East Royal Sanctuary, which is one of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, but not Purple Moon sanctuaries, where the lineage of Star is at. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. During the lengthy period of time where he was rushing his journey, he heard from King of Venomous Worms about the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. He also knew that the lineage of Star was within the Purple Moon Sanctuary. It's the overlord in power in Purple Moon Sanctuary. And the East Royal Sanctuary was quite far from the Purple Moon Sanctuary. To go to the Purple Moon Sanctuary from the East Royal Sanctuary, there are two ways. One is to take a wormhole that connects the two sanctuaries. However, that level of wormhole costs a huge price even to take just one ride. It isn't something you can afford. As for another way, it'd really need you to rush the journey on your own. Forget about the even longer journey from Snow Dojo to the East Royal Sanctuary. The danger during this journey is even bigger. King of Venomous Worms said. Chapter 1353, Sending a Message. Chapter 1353, Sending a Message. It takes longer and brings more risks? Jian Wushuang frowned. It seems like it will be impossible for me to go to the Purple Moon Sanctuary. King of Venomous Worms smiled. Don't be upset. You are unable to go alone there. But you could turn to talents from the lineage of Star for help and ask them to take you there. Ask them for help. Exactly. Don't forget that you are not only a disciple of the lineage of Star, but also enjoy a high status, as you belong to Star Palace. Send them a message, and they will take you there. King of Venomous Worms said. Jian Wushuang nodded. Now that we are in the East Royal Sanctuary, it will be much easier for us to go to the Purple Moon Sanctuary. As far as I know, there is a famous community called Vientiane Tower. King of Venomous Worms said. He continued. Any resources are available in the Vientiane Tower, and its power stretches to any corner of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. There are all kinds of businesses in the tower, intelligence vendors, traders of treasures, and even killers for hire. As long as you pay, you can do anything there. So it's easy for you to ask about sending a message. Jian Wushuang nodded and asked, do they dare to kill talents? Of course, talents there fear nothing. Once someone paid a high price for the service of killing a top genius from one of the top 3 tribes in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, which was even more powerful than the lineage of Star. So talents from Vientiane Tower accepted the request and killed that top genius. The tribe leader was furious, but he couldn't do anything. Jian Wushuang felt amazed by the power of the Vientiane Tower. The Vientiane Tower was far above the standard fare. So let's go to the Vientiane Tower. He entered a nearby town. There was a Vientiane Tower there. Is that the Vientiane Tower? In front of Jian Wushuang was a towering purple castle decorated with a pattern of a large exotic beast, with its mouth wide open, as if it wanted to swallow everything in the heavens. Jian Wushuang entered into the Vientiane Tower. There were many cultivators there, each of whom was followed by a waiter in a black robe. What a place full of talents! Jian Wushuang was excited. Those talents, as well as their waiters, were all universe gods. Even the waiters are universe gods. Universe gods are really ordinary. Jian Wushuang murmured. After all, the 10 cultivation sanctuaries is the center of the eternal chaotic world, and the heaven of countless cultivators. A super powerful universe god in an ordinary universe is just another nobody here. After pausing for a while, King of Venomous Worms continued. Many talents are far more powerful than you, and they are able to kill you easily. Don't bring trouble to yourself here. Jian Wushuang nodded. At that moment, a deacon in a black robe came to Jian Wushuang. She was a beautiful lady, who said smilingly, How can I help you? I want to send a message. To whom? The lady asked. Purple Moon Sanctuary of the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang said. Across sanctuaries? Okay, follow me. The lady took Jian Wushuang into a secret room. Sir, please write the message into the token, and we will send it out. 2 million chaotic crystals. So expensive, Jian Wushuang thought. In the eternal chaotic world, an ordinary universe god in the first heaven was around 50,000 chaotic crystals. The price of a message almost equaled that of a peak universe god in the second heaven. But Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate to pay. He had accumulated many chaotic crystals along the way in the past 1,000 years. But after he paid for the message, he now had only a few left. Within 3 days, we will inform you of the response from the other side. The lady said. Thank you. Jian Wushuang said before going to wait patiently in the secret room. The Vientiane Tower was indeed efficient. 1 day later, the message was sent to a top talent from the lineage of Star. Now in the Purple Moon Sanctuary. At the center of a star river, which was long and wide full of stars, was located the lineage of Star. An elderly in a white robe entered into a huge palace made of special crystals. Master. The elderly bowed to a man in a crystal bed. What's the matter? The man asked, sitting still. The elderly said, There is a message from the Vientiane Tower. In the message, a universe god said he belonged to the Star Palace of the lineage of Star, and now he is in the East Royal Sanctuary. He asked us to bring him here. Chapter 1354 Fairies Meeting. Chapter 1354 Fairies Meeting. Disciple from Star Palace. The long-haired middle-aged man who was like a statue finally opened his eyes. There was a flash of purple light in his eyes, just like a purple gemstone. There are only a few disciples from Star Palace in the lineage of Star. Since when do we have another one? The long-haired middle-aged man spoke with a low voice. He said that he passed through the test passed down from Star Foggy Sea in his hometown. He has yet to become the disciple of Star Palace. The elderly in white robe said. Star Foggy Sea? The long-haired middle-aged man creased his eyebrows. Would that be the one that the palace master left behind? Then, the long-haired middle-aged man replied to his message and asked. Soon there was an outcome. I asked the palace master. He did leave it in Star Foggy Sea, and he felt it was not long ago that there was someone who passed the test. It should be this universe god. Oh yeah, what's the young man's name? Which level is he in? The long-haired middle-aged man asked. His name is Jian Wushuang. He is a universe god in the first heaven now, and the message he sent showed that he was on the other side of ancient Star Sea. He came from a place called Snow Kingdom. He just arrived at the East Royal Sanctuary. The elderly in white robe replied. The other side of ancient Star Sea? That would require him to pass through two dangerous places, ancient Star Sea and the boundless void. He, who is just a universe god in the first heaven, could pass through them. Not bad. He lives up to his reputation as a genius who passed through the test that the palace master set up. The long-haired middle-aged man smiled faintly and immediately gave a command. Tell Vientiane Tower to send him a reply that we of the lineage of Star are going to send an expert to receive and lead him immediately. We should arrive within 10 years' time, and tell him to wait right there. Yes, the elderly in the white robe responded. He then turned around and left. The long-haired middle-aged man muttered to himself. The elderlies in the lineage of Star have work on hand. Who should I send to bring the young man over? Oh yeah, the long-haired middle-aged man exclaimed and sent a message out. Soon enough, a handsome man in a loose black robe appeared in the cave dwelling. Yuan, are you looking for me? The handsome man looked calm. Even though the long-haired middle-aged man was a highly positioned person in lineage of Star, second to the founder of lineage of Star, which was the palace master, the handsome man could call him by his name directly. The long-haired middle-aged man smiled and said, I have something for you to handle. What is it? The handsome man looked rather cold. Head over to East Royal Sanctuary. There's young man from lineage of Star. He is also a disciple from Star Palace. He just got there from his hometown, after going through some difficulties. He just sent a message to request us to send an expert to bring him. The long-haired middle-aged man said. That's simple. The handsome man creased his eyebrows. For such a simple task, you could have sent any deacon elderly to get it done. Although that's true, our deacon elderly have tasks on hand, and they couldn't free themselves from them. On top of that, the young man passed through the test that Palace Master set up, then became a disciple from Star Palace. He was not ordinary. I want you to see him, and instantly determine his power. Besides, most importantly, the middle-aged man paused and looked at the handsome man. All these years you have been wandering at that place, and you finally came back. You should be relaxing. Don't stress yourself out. Fine, I'll go. The handsome man didn't say much, but left right after he agreed. The middle-aged man noticed and let out a sigh. East Royal Sanctuary, in Vientiane Tower. Jian Wushuang had been waiting for 2 days, and the Vientiane Tower's attendant, the beautiful lady, came in. Mister, the message that you sent earlier, there's a reply. The beautiful lady smiled. What did they say? Jian Wushuang asked. The lineage of Star replied that they already sent an expert over. He should be here within 10 years. They told you to wait here for the time being. The beautiful lady smiled and said. That's great. Jian Wushuang was beaming with joy. As your matter has been taken care of, go ahead and do as you please, the beautiful lady said and left. Jian Wushuang left the Vientiane Tower soon, and found a place to stay temporarily. Jian Wushuang, in another 10 years, you will enter lineage of Star officially. When you arrive at Lineage of Star, your talent could be put to full play, King of Venomous Worms said. 10 years. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands together, and he was looking forward. 8 years passed by very quickly. But in the 9th year, have you heard? The fairies' meeting that happens once every 10,000 years in this Blood Jade land just started. I heard about it long ago. It's one of the highest standard meeting of Blood Jade land. I heard that many top geniuses participate. For instance, universe gods who are famous from Purple Heart Mansion are all taking part in it. TSK. The fairies' meeting is a great opportunity to rise to the top. It's a pity that I'm too weak. Otherwise, I'd like to give it a try too. In the hotel, many cultivators were gathered there, but they were all talking about the fairies' meeting. In one of the corners in the hotel, Jian Wushuang was drinking quietly while he listened to their discussion. Fairies' meeting? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. The fairies' meeting should be something similar to the Firmament Territory Feast that he came across when he stepped foot in Greenfire World. It was something for all parties to select geniuses. To those geniuses, it was really a place for newcomers to come to prominence. It was a great opportunity to rise to the top. However, the fairies' meeting was obviously much grander in scale. Jian Wushuang found out from King of Venomous Worms that the entire East Royal Sanctuary was extremely huge, bigger than any kingdom. East Royal Sanctuary was segregated into 9 pieces of land. In every land, there was the existence of various mansions. It was a structure on the surface, but there were various powers between every mansion, which was fairly complicated. For instance, he was currently in Purple Heart Mansion on the Blood Jade Land in East Royal Sanctuary. In the Blood Jade Land, besides Purple Heart Mansion, there were 187 other mansions. Every mansion had countless cultivators, which meant that naturally, there would be countless geniuses. Jian Wushuang, the fairies' meeting sounds great. Do you want to give it a try? King of Venomous Worms casually said. I am already a disciple under Lineage of Star. It's not necessary, Jian Wushuang smiled. If he didn't become a disciple under Lineage of Star, it would really be a good choice to join the fairies' meeting for him, to come to prominence, after he arrived at East Royal Sanctuary. However, just then it was really unnecessary. Regardless, head over and take a look. You just got to the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. You should see more of the geniuses here. It'd be beneficial for you too, King of Venomous Worms said. Chapter 1355, 2 Wushuangs. Chapter 1355, 2 Wushuangs. Jian Wushuang thought for a while, and followed King of Venomous Worms' advice. After all, it was good to learn more. Then he set out to the selection contest of the fairies' meeting. The preliminary selection contest was held in each town of the Blood Jade Land. Universe gods or above could attend, but only those who passed the preliminary selection contest could enter into the final contest of the fairies' meeting. When Jian Wushuang arrived, he was shocked. The boundless battlefield was full of tens of thousands of people. However, only 1% of them, or 100,000 of them, had come here for the selection contest. They were universe gods from 3 different heavens. Jian Wushuang soon understood how the selection contest worked. 2 parts, exploring the 9 boundaries tower and the inadvertent dreamland. The former one was a test of skills, while the latter was of consciousness. Anyone who passed these 2 tests had access to the fairies' meeting. The 9 boundaries tower is quite famous in the East Royal Sanctuary. It is a good opportunity to know how much you have improved your swordsmanship. You could have a try, King of Venomous Worms said. But I don't intend to attend the contest, Jian Wushuang said. But you can still go to the preliminary test without attending the fairies' meeting, King of Venomous Worms said. Can I? Of course. So Jian Wushuang signed up for the preliminary test. He waited with the others on the battlefield. As he waited, half of a month passed. How low the efficiency is, Jian Wushuang complained. It is because more than 100,000 universe gods are attending the selection, which is also why the selection contest is held 10 years ahead of the fairies contest. King of Venomous Worms explained. Don't worry. The one who will take you to the lineage of star hasn't come. You can wait patiently. So Jian Wushuang continued waiting. Almost 1 day passed. Next, Chung Wushuang. The announcement of the host sparked a heated discussion in the battlefield. Chung Wushuang, the top genius of the Lionheart town. He is also joining the preliminary selection contest, but I have heard that he is already the disciple of a tribe. Passing the selection contest is a piece of cake to him. The discussion continued. All eyes were on one person. He wore a white robe and held a folding fan. He looked refined with a charming smile. He was the well-known top genius in the Lionheart town. Chung Wushuang walked to the 9 Boundaries Tower slowly. Jian Wushuang was also watching. His name is quite similar to yours, huh? King of Venomous Worms said amusedly. But Jian Wushuang didn't care. After all, it was common for people to share the same name as others in the vast eternal chaotic world. How many levels could he achieve? Jian Wushuang wondered. After a while the result was announced. Chung Wushuang, the 11th level of the 9 Boundaries Tower, the 4th levels of the inadvertent dreamland. The spectators were excited. He passed. The criteria is 11th level of the 9 Boundaries Tower, and the 4th levels of the inadvertent dreamland. And he passed more than that. He is the first one in the Lionheart town to pass the preliminary contest. Everyone showed their admiration. From the past month, he was the first one to have passed the contest. With all eyes on him, the refined Chung Wushuang walked down from the tower. Next, Jian Wushuang. After the announcement, the battlefield turned silent. Even Chung Wushuang paused mid-step. Jian Wushuang. Chung Wushuang was interested. Another discussion was sparked. Interesting. Jian Wushuang after Chung Wushuang. 2 Wushuangs in the Lionheart town. And they go the contest one after the other? What a coincidence. Everyone was interested. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate to move forward. All were looking at him. As Jian Wushuang was entering into the Lionheart town, Chung Wushuang asked him indifferently, "You are Jian Wushuang?" Jian Wushuang paused, looked at Chung Wushuang and nodded. "You'd better change your name. Not everyone deserves this unique name." Jian Wushuang sneered. "My name was given to me by my parents and I cannot change it. By the way, how would you know whether or not I deserve it?" Then, Jian Wushuang continued to move forward and went into the 9 Boundaries Tower. Chung Wushuang didn't leave. He waited on the battlefield. Chapter 1356 Challenge. Chapter 1356 Challenge. 9 Boundaries Tower, 1st floor. Jian Wushuang looked at his opponent, a war puppet that was holding a saber. At the same time, Jian Wushuang could feel his divine power being restrained. In the 9 Boundaries Tower, he could only rely on the unique skill that he created and a killing technique to win victory. He couldn't take any other measure. To wander the dark void for 1,100 years. I have been studying my sword principle during those times. Now I can finally test and see how much have I improved. Let's get started. Jian Wushuang beamed with joy, and he suddenly charged forward. The war puppet before him took a huge stride forward too. It wielded its saber and let out a comparable divine power to Jian Wushuang's. Advanced rank 1 unique skill. Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows, then he swung his sword and collapsed the war puppet with one stroke. Then, Jian Wushuang appeared on the 2nd level. 9 Boundaries Tower had a total of 17 floors. As long as he passed through the first 10 floors, it was considered a pass. 9 Boundaries Tower changes according to the level of the cultivator. Jian Wushuang was just a universe god in the 1st heaven. That's why the war puppet from the 1st floor only performed an advanced rank 1 unique skill. However, when he arrived on the 2nd floor, the war puppet used a peak rank 1 unique skill. But it didn't affect Jian Wushuang at all. Jian Wushuang passed through floor by floor rather easily. Soon, Jian Wushuang passed through the 10th floor, which meant he had passed through the preliminary stage. On the 11th floor, it was still the same war puppet, but its sword technique had leveled up to be an advanced rank 2 unique skill. The Wushuang earlier passed through the 11th floor. He is also a universe god in the first heaven. In other words, he at least created an advanced rank 2 unique skill. Not too shabby, Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Among universe god in the first heaven from Snow Kingdom, those who had created an advanced rank 2 unique skill were only Long Hao from Snow Dojo and Lu Qing from Universe God Palace. The two of them were the top geniuses acknowledged in Snow Dojo and Universe God Palace. In East Royal Sanctuary, the top genius in an ordinary town was not weaker than Long Hao nor Lu Qing. He might even be stronger. Wow! A cold sword shadow swept past, but didn't leave any traces behind in the void. Jian Wushuang broke down the war puppet on the 11th floor directly. On the 12th floor, the war puppet still carried out an advanced rank 2 unique skill, but it was considered the stronger kind. When one reaches the 12th floor, he has to create a peak rank 2 unique skill. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, and there was another flash of sword light. The brutal sword light was unbelievably fast. It hit the war puppet directly. He passed through the 12th floor. On the 13th floor, the war puppet was already performing a peak rank 2 unique skill. However, Jian Wushuang only fought against it for a short while before he felled it again. On the 14th floor. Wow! 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 The billowing saber light continuously slashed towards Jian Wushuang, and he felt a tremendous increase of pressure. The 14th floor is the real barrier to testify to my improvement within the last 1,000 years. Jian Wushuang held his fists as murderous intention filled his eyes. The very next moment, Jian Wushuang erupted his swordsmanship. Dragon roar! Roar! A terrifying, low bellow swept out along with the soaring sword intention. Jian Wushuang put his sword principles that he created all these years to play entirely. The fight was rather ferocious. After a fierce battle, the war puppet on the 14th floor was defeated by Jian Wushuang. Phew! Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief and came to the 5th floor of the 9 Boundaries Tower. I already gave my all to go through the 14th floor. I performed 3 peak rank 2 unique skills that I created. The 15th floor was stronger than the 14th floor. If I want to pass through it, I have to at least create a rank 2 strongest unique skill. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. Rank 2 strongest unique skill. As it was a strongest unique skill, it would be very difficult to create. Back then, Jian Wushuang created a rank 1 strongest unique skill, Eternal Light. It was created via an enormous amount of accumulation plus a bit of luck. As he wandered for the past 1,000 years, his swordsmanship did improve greatly. He even created 3 different peak rank 2 unique skills. However, he had yet to create a rank 2 strongest unique skill. He didn't pass through the 15th floor in the end. After going through 9 Boundaries Tower, Jian Wushuang immediately entered Inadvertent Dreamland. Inadvertent Dreamland focused on testing one's consciousness. There was a total of 7 floors. He only had to pass through 3 floors to pass the preliminary stage. Stepping foot in the 1st floor of Inadvertent Dreamland, Jian Wushuang wasn't affected at all. It was followed by the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. Jian Wushuang passed through the 4 floors of Dreamland rather leisurely. He didn't feel pressured at all. My consciousness strength has reached the level of a universe god in the 3rd heaven. I'm definitely considered a monster among universe gods in the 1st heaven, and my consciousness has already transformed into a soul power that has become more firm and tenacious. The test of Inadvertent Dreamland would barely cause any harm to me. Jian Wushuang shook his head in silence. After going through the first 4 levels, he wasn't affected at all. Even the following 5th floor, 6th floor, and even 7th floor wouldn't have too huge of an effect. However, even though he was confident to pass through the 7th floor, Jian Wushuang gave up the following tests after he passed through the 5th floor easily. After all, his target was originally just 9 Boundaries Tower. It was unnecessary to put up too impressive of a show. The reason why he passed through the 5th floor was that he thought Cheng Wushuang was an eyesore, so he intentionally passed an extra floor than him. Otherwise, according to Jian Wushuang's character, he would only pass through the 3rd floor, which was sufficient to pass the preliminary threshold. After going through 9 Boundaries Tower and inadvertent dreamland, Jian Wushuang returned to the training field. The people under the training field looked at him subconsciously, and Cheng Wushuang squinted his eyes as he watched him. On the top of the training field, the universe god in the third heaven, who was the host of the preliminary stage, received the outcome of Jian Wushuang. Going through 9 Boundaries Tower, an inadvertent dreamland revealed a shocking expression. The universe god in the third heaven then announced the result. Jian Wushuang passed through 14 floors in 9 Boundaries Tower and 5 floors in inadvertent dreamland. He passed the preliminary stage. When the universe god in the third heaven announced the result, his voice became rather heated. After the result was announced, the entire training field was in silence. There was shock in everyone's eyes. How is this possible? The scholarly bearing youth, Cheng Wushuang, looked at Jian Wushuang in awe. There was a surge of emotions in him. He only passed through the 11th floor in 9 Boundaries Tower, and he was considered amazing. However, the other Wushuang went all the way to the 14th floor. It was another 3 floors more than he did. What's going on? Chapter 1357. Every sect was excited about Jian Wushuang. Chapter 1357. Every sect was excited about Jian Wushuang. An unusual talent. Jian Wushuang is an unusual talent in the Purple Heart Mansion. Oh, I mean in the Blood Jade Land, and even in the whole East Royal Sanctuary. Cheng Wushuang exclaimed. And I said he didn't deserve his name. Cheng Wushuang felt regretful and terrified. He knew that talents like Jian Wushuang were qualified enough to join a powerful tribe or sect, and be a core figure, and could even win the fairies contest. He feared that Jian Wushuang was angry with him, and would bring him trouble. Is he angry? Maybe I could apologize by changing my name. Cheng Wushuang thought. But actually, Jian Wushuang didn't pay any attention to him. After he passed the preliminary contest, he left. But everyone got excited and admired him a lot. Go. Tell our leader that there is a real top genius in the Lionheart town. He reached the 14th level of the 9 Boundaries Tower, which has only 17 levels. As far as we know, only 2 talents have reached the 14th level, and Jian Wushuang is the 3rd one. Tell our sect members to come and invite Jian Wushuang to join us, or he will join other sections. Intelligence talents from different groups shared information with each other about Jian Wushuang. After only half of a day, many talents from different sects came to Lionheart Town to see Jian Wushuang. But Jian Wushuang now stayed alone in the yard that he lived in. Jian Wushuang was unsatisfied with his performance. Instead, he knew that he was now meeting with the bottleneck of his swordsmanship, and until a new opportunity, he couldn't improve. He wanted to make a breakthrough. But it was now extremely difficult to make a breakthrough. As he was upset, a figure appeared at the top of Jian Wushuang's yard. A breath disseminated around with a power appalling to any universe gods. What is that? Jian Wushuang felt the power and raised his head. He was surprised when he saw a black figure rising in the heaven. He felt that the one in front of him was a peak talent that transcended universe gods, and was at the same level as Master of Silence Gloriette from the Snow Dojo. Jian Wushuang had heard about that level of power. It's a real god. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists excitedly. The real god was at a level beyond universe gods. Real gods, though not as powerful as an almighty, were definitely experts in the eternal chaotic world. Real gods were definitely the privileged and respectable ones in any god kingdom, or any sect in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. And now, Jian Wushuang was meeting a real god. Are you Jian Wushuang? This black-robed elderly smiled kindly to Jian Wushuang. Yes. And may I ask your name? Jian Wushuang asked. He had thought the elderly was from the lineage of Star, but he quickly disregarded the possibility. Because he had the identity token for disciples of the Star Palace, he would feel a signal if this real god was from the lineage of Star. But Jian Wushuang didn't feel the signal. I am Wu Chun from Tianluo Star Palace. The black-robed elderly introduced himself. Tianluo Star Palace? Jian Wushuang had never heard of it. Wu Chun knew Jian Wushuang was puzzled and he said, To be honest, I come to invite you to join our Tianluo Star Palace. I know that you have reached the 14th level of the Nine Boundaries Tower. If you join us, our sect will definitely provide you with the best training. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He knew now that Wu Qin came here to invite him. Tianluo Star Palace is known to be the top sect in the Purple Heart Mansion. With our abundant resources, you could unleash your potential there. Wu Qin said. Jian Wushuang hesitated. Before he replied, another talent came, saying with hostility, Wu Qin, do you feel ashamed when you are lying? The newcomer was a lady in a purple robe. She also had breath as powerful as Wu Qin, also a real god. Another one? Jian Wushuang felt embarrassed. He just intended to test his swordsmanship, and he wanted to keep a low profile without showing his full strength. He didn't expect there to still be talents coming for him. Kong Jing. Wu Qin looked worried. Kong Jing said indifferently, You may lie to him, but you cannot cheat me. Is Tianluo Star Palace ranked first? What about Holy Church of Golden Wing? When she turned to Jian Wushuang, Kong Jing's tone softened. I am Kong Jing from the Holy Church of Golden Wing. If you join us, I will arrange a top real god for you, with the best swordsmanship. Kong Jing smiled to Jian Wushuang. But neither Kong Jing nor Wu Qin, or Jian Wushuang knew that not far away, there was another talent who was looking at them. This disciple of the lineage of Star is quite popular. Chapter 1358 Lei Chao. Chapter 1358 Lei Chao. Holy Church of Golden Wing? Jian Wushuang looked at the two real gods before him. Regardless of whether it's Tianluo Star Palace or Holy Church of Golden Wing, I have never heard of either. I reckon there are some powerful forces in East Royal Sanctuary. It's nice that they have a few real gods to personally attend their forces. In East Royal Sanctuary, there are countless forces of that size. How could it be compared favorably with the lineage of Star? Jian Wushuang, you don't have to bother with them, King of Venomous Worms said. I know, Jian Wushuang simply replied. However, he actually didn't dare to ignore the two real gods. My friend, Wu Qin spoke. I know that with your talent you could totally showcase yourself in the fairies' meeting, and some bigger forces might take a liking to you. However, don't forget that although the bigger forces have more resources, they have more outstanding disciples under them too. After segregation, the resources that you obtain might, in turn, be lesser. However, it's different in Tianluo Star Palace. For a talent like you would definitely be nurtured and raised with the utmost care in Tianluo Star Palace. We at the Holy Church of Golden Wing would do the same, the purple-dressed lady, Kong Jing added too. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but smile bitterly. He replied, I'm sorry. I appreciate your kind offers, but to be frank, I didn't intend to join the fairies' meeting. In other words, I naturally didn't intend to join any other forces or sections. The reason why I joined the preliminary was merely because I wanted to test my sword's principle via the Nine Boundaries Tower. You didn't intend to join any forces or sects? Wu Qin and Kong Jing both creased their eyebrows. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded. To be honest, I have already had a master since long ago. Is that so? Wu Qin and Kong Jing exchanged a glance. They both felt disappointed. A genius who had passed through Nine Boundaries Tower till the 14th floor like Jian Wushuang was definitely someone that both sects would love to have. Hence, at the moment, the two of them had received such news. They rushed over personally. However, they never expect that Jian Wushuang was a master long ago. As he had a master, he naturally couldn't join other sections. Just then, swoosh, a figure appeared out of nowhere above the courtyard. Jian Wushuang Wu Qin. Kong Jing looked towards the visitor. It was a handsome man in a loose long robe. The handsome man looked cold as he stood there without giving out much aura. However, his star-like eyes glanced at Wu Qin and Kong Jing. With just that one glance, the two real gods, Wu Qin and Kong Jing, both revealed a face of terror. Their faces grew pale all of a sudden. I am Lei Chao. The handsome man spoke in a cold but soft voice. However, It caused a loud echo in Wu Chen and Kong Jing's head. Lei Chao. Real God Lei Chao from lineage of star? The expert on the real god list. Wu Chen and Kong Jing were shocked. They had obviously heard Lei Chao's name before, and they clearly knew how amazing he was. Greetings, Mr. Lei Chao. Greetings, Mr. The two real gods bowed politely at the handsome man without hesitation. They were all real gods, but the two of them revered Lei Chao sincerely. The handsome man Lei Chao merely glanced at them, but didn't bother with the two real gods. He turned to look at Jian Wushuang instead. You are Jian Wushuang? Lei Chao looked at Jian Wushuang. Greetings, Mr. Lei Chao. Jian Wushuang also bowed politely, but he wasn't worried. He could feel the lineage of stars token on Lei Chao. I am here to bring you back to the lineage of star. Be prepared, we shall leave now, Lei Chao said calmly. I don't have to prepare anything. I can leave any time, Jian Wushuang replied. Lei Chao nodded and looked at the two real gods next to him. The two real gods looked terrified, and Wu Chen said, Mr. Lei Chao, the two of us didn't know that this young man has a master, let alone the fact that he was a disciple from the lineage of star. Hence, we invited him to join us. Please forgive us. I saw everything that happened earlier, Lei Chao said. As the two of you came for him, you definitely know a bit about his ability then. Tell me. This. Wu Chen hesitated for a while before she said. The reason why we found him was that he joined the preliminary for the fairies' meeting. During the preliminary, he passed through 14 levels in 9 Boundaries Tower and 5 levels in Inadvertent Dreamland. Hence, we rushed over to get him. 9 Boundaries Tower? Inadvertent Dreamland? Lei Chao raised his eyebrows. I have heard about the 2 tests. A universe god in the first heaven passing through 14 levels is quite impressive. However, on consciousness, although he was better than similar ranks, he still wouldn't be considered the top. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard that. He wasn't even in the mood to go through the test in Inadvertent Dreamland. If he were to give his all, he might be able to pass through all 7 floors in Inadvertent Dreamland. Jian Wushuang, let's go. Lei Chao didn't say anything more. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate but followed Lei Chao. As for Wu Chen and Kong Jing, they stood there until they saw Lei Chao left entirely. Then, the two of them finally let out a breath of relief. Lei Chao, he is really the top expert on the list. He is also famous in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. I can't believe we could see him in person. Wu Chen clasped his hands together as he spoke passionately. I originally planned to get this genius at all costs, but was unaware that Jian Wushuang had joined Lineage of Star long ago. Lineage of Star, TSK, the Overlord in Purple Moon Sanctuary. They have countless geniuses. Although Jian Wushuang is amazing, he might not be the top expert in Star Palace, Kong Jing said quietly. Kong Jing, I guess your effort was in vain. Wu Chen looked over. Same for you, isn't it? Kong Jing smirked. He's a disciple from the Lineage of Star. Unless Tianluo Star Palace is planning to fight for him with the Lineage of Star? Wu Chen shrugged. The two of them didn't chat further but left. In the void, Jian Wushuang moved swiftly behind Lei Chao. Mr. Lei Chao, are we going back to Lineage of Star directly? Jian Wushuang asked. I have something to take care of in East Royal Sanctuary. We will return right after. Don't worry, it won't take too long, Lei Chao said. Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows, but he remained unconcerned. Then Jian Wushuang followed closely behind Lei Chao. The two of them took the wormhole towards another land in East Royal Sanctuary. In one of the mansions on the land, Lei Chao brought Jian Wushuang along with him, and stopped before an ancient clan. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.